Hello, everybody. Chag Sameach. As we move towards the end of Pesach, it's a custom to say Yizkor, to remember those in our families who have passed away. It's the custom, it began in Eastern Europe in the 17th century or so. It's interesting that one of the most deeply rooted customs in Judaism is not one of the oldest. It's only in the last 300, 400, 500 years that Jews have been marking at the ends of the festivals their loved ones. That originally began on Yom Kippur in a much more ancient time, and then spread to the festivals where we say the names of and pray on behalf of our deceased loved ones and to pledge tzedakah in their names. And it's deeply rooted in people's experience of this religion. It speaks to the connections that we have when we lose loved ones. They're never really gone from us. They're close by in our hearts and minds. And so more than any of the stories of the Torah or many of the commandments, I think it's our connections to our family members that motivate us to be connected to this whole way of life and to our Am Yisrael peoplehood. The text of the Yizkor is really addressed to God, but I think in a strange way, and I actually would hazard the guess that most people don't really think of it as addressed to God as much as addressed to themselves. And that's the reflection I'd like to focus on today as preparation for us thinking about and saying Yizkor ourselves. We say, Yizkor Elohim et nishmat, may God remember the soul of my person, my parent, my spouse, my friend, my sibling, my relative, God forbid, my child. And first of all, what does it even mean to say that God should remember? We think of God, or I think of God, as an eternal presence. Perhaps one even thinks about God as being an eternal simultaneity in which there's not the past that is gone and the future that has not arrived, but just existence. All exist, all at the same moment. So it's a strange thing to say. May God remember somebody who's passed away, as if that person's somehow faded from God's memory. But the Bible speaks about God remembering things all the time, and it doesn't necessarily mean, I think it does not mean something like human memory, where, oh, wait a minute, I forgot about that. Let me retrieve that piece of information. I don't think that this is the way divine memory works in the Torah. For example, in this time of year, or Pesach time of year, we think about the Exodus story, and it says that God remembered, Vayizkor Elohim et brito, et Avraham et Yitzchak ve'Yaakov. God remembered the covenant. I don't think that means that God had been paying attention to something else and then said, oh, wait a minute, I have to retrieve that covenantal memory. I think that the way to think about God's memory in the Torah is something like paying attention and focusing on something, not retrieving the lost memory, but devoting attention to something. And I think that image, not necessarily of retrieving lost information or going to the computer file or going to the file folder and pulling out a piece of information, but paying attention is what really applies to us. I don't think that when we stand in synagogue, or as we'll do today, say privately our Yizkor prayers, that we are asking God to pay attention to our loved ones. I think that we're really taking a moment and ourselves paying attention to our loved ones, the people who have touched our lives. It is for us to pay attention to these people, because we are saying, when we say Yizkor, that every life matters. Every single life is precious. That, to me, is the postulate that makes this religion make sense. It's the premise. And if we have that premise, this religion makes sense. And if we don't have this premise, I think this religion makes substantially less sense. Every single life matters. And to say about our loved ones, those who are no longer with us, your life matters not only in the abstract, although I think that's true too, but your life matters to me. Your life matters to me because it intersected my life and it shapes my life. I am who I am because I came in contact with you. And when we say Yizkor Elohim, we are really saying, I think, to perhaps the God within ourselves, the divinity within ourselves, but I think we speak mostly to ourselves, to say about people who touched our life, your life matters to me. This is a time in the history of the human species of great fragility and loneliness. And those things remind us how precious, how infinitely precious each and every single life is. I want to invite you to think for a moment, as I say this on April 14th, of the 23,649 Americans who have passed away from COVID-19, the 120,863 people worldwide who have passed away from COVID-19. Their lives matter in the abstract, but more important than they matter in the abstract, they matter in the individual to any number of people in their lives. We stand at a time today where we can feel very isolated, where we can feel very alone. What I hope to offer you as a kavanah for saying Yizkor is that you're not alone, because your life is lived amidst the lives of other people, each of whom matter tremendously, each of whom matter infinitely. And so you may feel alone sometimes, or you may feel isolated. I encourage you, as you say Yizkor, to think about all those people, your parents and your spouses and your friends and your cousins and your siblings, and God forbid your children, and know that you're not alone. They are with you. They are still with you, and they are with you in the dimension of you paying attention to their lives, and every single one of them matters in the abstract, but matters most of all to you. Yehi Zichram Baruch. May their memory be a blessing.